place?
I think they have one in Marquette. They have one in Iron Mountain, or technically Kingsford. Then there's one over by Escanaba, Gladstone, I believe. Gladstone, I think it is.
What is it called again?
Main Street Pizza.
Main Street Pizza. Well, we didn't have much time because we had to drive up to Sault Ste. Marie for a 15-minute interview to get global entry for us and then drive home.
Holy cow, yeah.
It's the only place that we could get quick interview for the next several months.
Yeah, I heard getting the global entry stuff was really backed up right now.
Yeah, anything close, it's months and months away.
Yeah, I think Milwaukee and Chicago were both six months out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I gotta update my passport myself. It expires in May.
Well, you might start it now if you think you're going to need it.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's good for 10 years.
Yeah, and get the passport card too.
Yeah, correct.
Let's see. That one I've got. That one I got.
Anybody in the Falls area lose power?
Oh, you guys lost power today? On a nice sunny
Yeah,
day?
we lost power for about an hour and a half, 2 hours,
Wow.
something like that. I'm still down on internet is still out. I'm running off of my hotspot right now.
Oh, jeez.
By the way, let's see, 3 people, Joe Higdon, and I think Ian, and I can't think of the other person, the lady. Oh, Jane, have been posting photos on the Menomonee Falls Facebook site, and they're really, really, really good.
Thanks.
I enjoy looking at them.
Okay.
I made it down to the Orchid show on the 18th. So went on a Saturday because that's all I could make, and it's a pretty good day.
Brian and I are going down there tomorrow, Ian.
Nice. It's admittedly, I think other years have been better. Just didn't. It's still beautiful. It just didn't feel like the same number. And then they also have these like big magnifying glass things. Like that's like the I don't know, trick they tried to do this year, just to do something different. I'm not a huge fan of it. This weird distortion, just looking at them. Can you take a photo through it? Maybe it's going to be goofy looking. It's different, but there's still tons of flowers down there. And I also spent time in the desert botanic, the garden off to the side too. So it was a fun trip. I still took like 1,300 photos, I think. Hopefully you get some clouds so it's not too harsh a light.
Yeah, that's what the forecast was the other day. I'm not sure where it is now.
It was on nothing but bright, clear blue skies the day I was there. So kind of had to pick and choose which orchids you could really go for, else they were just, super, super harsh.
I have
forecast says mostly cloudy for Chicago tomorrow.
I have a quick comment. My wife and I were in South Africa, came home a week and a half ago, and on the first river trip we took for a game drive, there was a boat that went out that had 8 people sitting in the middle of the boat behind cameras and lenses that had to easily be 2 feet long or something, and they're all facing the same way. it looked like they were cannons pointed out to, it was just such a strange sight.
Is that on the Chobe River?
It was in Kruger Park, so I don't think it was the Chobe.
Krieger, okay,
Zambini.
Oh, the Zambini River.
okay.
Okay, Roger, you can start.
Okay. Can you hear me well enough?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, good. Welcome to the Menomonee Falls Camera Club, and like to welcome any new members that we have, or we have one returning member, Dominic. Did you want to tell us a little bit about what equipment you use and what kind of pictures you take?
Sure. Hi, I'm Dominic Kyo. I'm a past member, circa 2000 or 2001. I mostly take landscape travel photography. I'm at the moment trying to learn Milky Way photography. It's a challenge. I'd like to also learn more about post-processing. I seem to take a lot of pictures, but haven't spent any time in the last couple of years post-processing them. So I'm an Nikon user. I saved up all my Amazon points, and about 2 years ago bought a D850, and I'm still learning how to use it. So I would appreciate any help there. So thanks again for the invitation, and looking forward to learning.
Sure,
Thank you.
glad to have you. We do have a number of Nikon users that I'm sure can help with any questions you might have. Personally, I'm a Canon user. So
We won't hold that against you.
yeah. We'll go through a few things here, but probably the biggest news to start off the meeting with is that our main speaker of Lewis Katz had some family matters to take care of and couldn't be here tonight. So Jeff and I are doing a couple of smaller presentations today. Mine will be on focus stacking. And
Roger,
yeah,
it would be Mike Musel would have been the speaker tonight.
right.
Lewis Katz was last month.
Okay. Well, I'm
Just
trying to read my,
clarification. So no storm photography tonight. So,
Yeah.
okay.
and Jeff's
Sorry.
going to do a presentation on a new paint program that he's learning about. And let's see, for Wacko, Ken, do you want to talk at all about the spring competition, when the deadline is for putting in pictures for the competition?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the deadline is. I think it's around April 16th or somewhere in that area.
Yeah, April 16th.
Okay. And special categories, I believe nature is reptiles, insects, and amphibians. And open is PJ.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's plenty of time to go through your images and find something that you can enter in the competition.
All right. Thank you. And Jeff, did you have anything that you wanted to say about digital form?
Well, this month in digital form, we have Mike Mazul. So right now, I have no idea whether he's going to be there or not. I didn't want to bug him after he told me he was canceling for tonight. Hopefully his family issues will be straightened out. He really felt bad that he couldn't be here tonight, but he's flying home to his, I guess home, he said. So I'm not sure what's all going on there. Hopefully, though, we'll have Mike Mazul talking about volcano photography. this month. If not, I'll be coming up with something for us to talk about the second hour. And we have a number of good speakers coming up in the next few months, all the way up to July. So we'll let you know as each one comes along.
Okay. And for the PSA, there's a competition that the Wisconsin chapter is part of, and that's chapters across America. If anybody wants to enter into that, I've put some pictures in, and there are 5 categories, and there's going to be 4 different clubs across the US that will be judging the pictures. And also we have a outing coming up to the zoo that Brian is going to host, and that will be meeting on April 1st at 9:40 after the zoo opens. And
Yeah, Roger, I'll be talking about that when I do my my show and tell.
okay,
I'll talk a lot more about that then.
okay. And let's see, there's also a possibility of people going to the Orchid Show. I think, didn't I just hear that Ken and someone else was going there?
Ken and Brian, yeah.
What?
Ken
Ken
and
and
Brian.
Brian are going tomorrow.
Okay. And then don't forget that there's going to be a call for pictures for June for a subject of matter of leading lines that Jane Hurst will put together a slideshow based on that. She did a real nice one on favorite images in December. And tonight, Brian is going to do his show and tell. He mentioned that'll be on the zoo. And I have a slideshow presentation of President's Challenge for Bold Colors. I can show that to you in a moment here. And then we'll have my presentation and Jeff's after that, or after Brian's. But also remember that next month's President's Challenge is tabletop arrangements. I'm sure that people have been trying to stay entertained indoors this winter, and I know I've done a couple of things. So, Brian, do you want to go first, or should I go first with my slideshow?
Roger, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, can I interrupt just a minute?
Sure.
On May 2nd, we are doing the post-processing challenges from that we have usually 5, 6, or 7 people show the ways they can process images after they've taken them, which might be right up Dominic's alley. I don't know. But it would be nice to get the volunteers as early as possible. So if anybody is interested in doing this, let us know soon, now, or whatever you want to. Now would be good.
Okay, that's the one where Jeff provides an image and each person does post-processing on it, and then we compare as to what the differences each person did.
How we use that photo and what we've done to get it to that particular point. Yep.
Okay.
Tony, did you have your hand raised? Is that a yes?
Yes, I had to unmute. I would be interested. I am interested in the tabletop or the post processing.
Okay.
Ellen, I'm always
No,
interested in doing those.
okay.
Ellen,
I could do it.
Who what?
this is Steve.
Oh, Patty.
Patty
I'll
and
do-
Steve.
and Patty.
I'll give it a
But-
shot.
Ellen, I'll do it as well. Steve Weingarth.
Okay. It's been a while since I've done it, so I could actually do one also. So I have Tony, Ian, Patty, Steve, me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5. So if somebody else would be interested, let us. Jim, okay, I can read. Thank you very much. Okay.
Who is that?
So that,
Jim Bauer?
no,
Ellen?
not Jim Bauer. It
Korowski.
was Jim.
Oh, Jim
Yeah.
Korowski. Okay. I'm just writing it down so I know who to send a photo to. Now I have to come up with a good photo.
Or a bad photo.
It might be a bad photo. I'm not shooting many good photos, so.
At least the
Doesn't
bad
matter.
photo makes it more challenging in that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so there's six of us.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good number.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you. Makes
All
my
right.
job easier. I'm done.
Okay. So do you think you want to go first, Brian?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, as Roger mentioned, we're going to be doing a zoo outing on Saturday, April 1st. Now, the zoo opens at 9:30. Excuse me. So the way we're advertising this right now is to meet in the gathering area in the US Bank building. It's where you first come into the zoo. Meet there around 9:40 or whenever you can get in. It's so hard to tell. I'm going to try to get there before 9:30 just to beat the crowd, but you never know how it's going to be. Point being, if it's a really nice day, there's going to be a lot of people there, and you might even choose to wait to maybe even not start until like 10 o'clock, plan to get zoo around 10 o'clock after the lines got in, but it's up to you. It's just, I know even during the winter on some of these nice weather days, the lines have been backed up a bit. So, use your best judgment. And for those of you who be there, I don't know what time I'll get in, but as soon as I get in, I'll be in the welcoming area from about 9:40 or whenever I get in until 10 o'clock. And we can talk about things.
Is that a free zoo day too?
No, that is not.
Okay, okay.
No, we want to avoid those because that's going to be
Yeah.
a lot of people. Now, I think the last one is in March. That's my understanding.
Okay.
Brian, if I may, I have a zoo pass and I'm going to be going. So if anybody would like to carpool with me, they could sit in my car.
Okay. That's a great idea. Yeah, thanks, Linnea. I mean, yeah, do carpool because, it's non-senior residents can be non-seniors are going to be $12.25 a person to get in. If you're not a senior, it's like another $1. Parking is $15. So if you've got that pass, well, your pass may or may not have parking, but anyway, yeah, do carpool. Yes. Yeah. Anything else, Linnea? You had your hand up. You're muted, I think. I'm not hearing. I'm watching Linnea's lips.
I'm sorry, I was trying to get the unmute. I do have the parking. And so if anybody wants to ride, I would drive past the falls. I'm good.
we've done this in the summertime, and the focus has been the most. I think most of us tend to shoot the outdoor animals in the summer. Enjoy the day, and but I was thinking we were talking about this during the planning meeting, but just I was when I was thinking about this, I was thinking like this is more of a winter experience. And so I think our focus here is going to be on the indoor experiences. And so like we've got the aviary, we've got the primates, big cats, small mammals, aquatic and reptiles. You've got the ellies indoors, but that space is confined. It's not good for photography. Giraffes will be indoors, probably, unless it really warms up. But so anyway, I was thinking this is an indoor experience, and that's going to present challenges. Ken and I were there the other day, and I've been there a couple times in the winter. And what you're going to be dealing with is low light. So you want to think, high ISO, wide open lenses. If you've got an f2.8. I've done a lot of work with a 70 to 150, and I find that really good. Maybe even put a 1.4 teleconverter on it to get a little bit of reach. But I think you want to go with a lens that's got as much light, allows as much light as possible, that stops down as much as possible. So that'll be your advantage. It's going to be low light. And by the way, don't bring a tripod. It's going to be a Saturday. They're going to be busy, and there just isn't room for tripods. A monopod might work, but anyway, the idea is do something different. This is going to be a little bit challenging being indoors. So there will be some animals outdoors, of course, but whatever you want to do. But just thought I'd lay this down as a challenge, for indoor photography. And I guess having said that, I'm going to show a little slideshow. This covers the areas that I talked about, the indoor areas, few outdoor animals, but not many. And maybe this will give you a feel for some of the animals that you can go after. So let's see if I can share screen, and let's see. And let's see. Remember Jeff saying there was something that I have to toggle to get the audio.
Yeah, before you hit the final share screen, you need to click there's a audio thing to click.
I didn't see it, but so
it's in the lower left corner. So hit share screen, and then in that box in the lower left-hand corner.
Well, first I'll activate what I want to show, right? Or do I do this first?
Well, you can do it either way. It's when you hit the share screen, you get a pop-up dialog box that in the lower left-hand corner, there's a box to check for sound.
Lower left, all I see is mute and stop video. And
it's after you hit the share screen button. Hit the share screen, and it's where you pick your desktop.
Yeah.
And so it's just jumping right to it, huh?
Well, I had some audio with it, so let's see if this plays. You hear audio? I do.
Yeah, I think it's coming through your microphone and your computer. Actually, now the sound went away.
Okay,
Very good, Brian.
thank you.
Uh,
So hopefully that gives you some ideas, things you can shoot, when you're there. And of course, you're never going to see all those animals in one trip to the zoo at the same time. It's if you do, it's amazing. But it's and sometimes go through an area a couple times because things always change. That's the way it is with animals. So again, this is Saturday, April 1st, and we'll start in the morning whenever you get there, and I'll be in the welcoming area starting around 9:40 or as soon as I get there, and look for you and grab a map when you get there if you're not familiar with the zoo, and have a good time. Any
Brian,
questions?
yeah, what kind of ISOs are you talking about?
Well, 25,000 isn't unusual. I mean, it depends upon, it's going to depend upon, your shutter, of course, your f-stop. The some of the primates, I was looking back at my files, and the gorilla, I actually shot that at like at 1/25th of a second handheld. And down around, that was f3.5. I forget what the ISO was on that, but I mean, you get into like small mammals with the bats, and you're up around 25,000, or it's so. Just work with open up your lens as much as you can, and play with your shutter speed. I mean, the lower you can get, of course, it's going to depend upon the animals. If you're in the aviary, then the bird's moving around, you're talking about 1/1000th, one over 1,500 or something. But just play with it, and does that help?
Yes, thank you.
One tip I was going to mention was that, like in the aviary, they've got some screens to hold the birds in and stuff. In order to get those to fuzz out, you'd like to have a wide aperture, very open, and then have the subject actually back away from the fence in order to get that to disappear in your picture. If they're right up next to the fence, you're going to have it. I got some nice pictures about a month ago of some wolves, and they were the right distance away. I had a real wide aperture, and I got a chain link fence to totally disappear across the wolves. The only place that you could see it was, if you look at the background, the boak was in a zigzag pattern behind the wolves.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Okay, well, hope to see you at the zoo.
Okay, thanks, Brian. I'm going to do my bold colors slideshow. And we'll see if I can get that started properly. No, it's not. Screen 2. Share sound. Okay. Is this showing up for everybody now? MFCC bold
Yep.
colors.
Yep, looks good. Even heard
Okay.
some sound.
All right, well, start it off then. Okay, I'd like to thank everybody for sending in those pictures. I thought we had some pretty good ones this month. And since I'm already in here sharing, I think I'm going to start on my presentation. And first, I'd kind of start out asking how many people are using Lightroom for their processing. Okay, a fair number. All right, I'll be talking about how to process focus stacking in Lightroom. And on the new mirrorless cameras, it seems that most of them are offering what they call focus bracketing, at least in Canon. I'm not certain what the term is over in Nikon or Sony. And how they do it is they ask you how many pictures you want to take and a focus increment. So every time it goes to take a shot, it'll start at the closest thing that it can focus on, and then take a picture, increment, take a picture, increment, until it hits infinity or it hits the shot number limit. And it takes a little while to get used to thinking on those terms. Now on the Canon here, there's something called exposure smoothing. And what that is that as you focus at different depths, the actual part that's in focus could have a different exposure setting. So it tries to even that out across all of the pictures by using the exposure smoothing. I'll show you the pictures that I'm going to talk about here. And I had a frog in my front garden, and I decided he looked like a good subject. So I set up my camera with my 150 to 600 millimeter lens with a extension tube on it, so I could get real close to him. And how I set up the focusing was to turn the focus ring on the lens until it was at the minimum focus distance, and then use my zoom ring to zoom in and out until the very front leaves in the image were in focus. And then when I told the camera to take the image, it would start there and work on increments, taking a whole bunch of shots. My first image is just a normal shot. And then after that, all of these are focus stacking. And if I step through them, you'll see how on here, the leaves in the very front are in focus. And if I step a little bit further, it's getting back almost to the front of the frog. And then it's further back. It's actually behind the frog. It's the top leaves are in focus at this point.
Roger, you were on a tripod, I assume?
Yeah, this was on a tripod. And when you take these pictures, the shutter will open and then it will use an electronic shutter to take all of these shots. So it happens very quickly. From what you see behind the camera, it looks like it's just taking forever to take one picture, but it's taking many pictures. And you'll see here that part of what I'm going to talk about is that now I end up with a whole bunch of different images that are a little difficult to sort through. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of those pictures, highlight them, and go in and do, if I can get my menu to work, there we go. I'm going to go underneath stacking and say auto stack by capture time. And it says time between stacks. So in other words, pictures that were taken very close together, it will group those into a stack. So here I'd have 2 pictures that stand alone and 9 stacks. If I were to change this time by a lot, you would see that the number of stacks would change based on its calculations. Like here, it would put almost everything into one stack. I usually find about a couple tenths of a second is about right. So now that cleaned it up. I have a stack of 20 images here that I took, 20 images here. Each of those is a set of images that that are part of their own focus stacking. You see I colored a couple of them. That just helps me organize things. So on this one that here is 21 images, I'm going to take that And I'm going to export it out to my program that will actually marry these together. And the program that I use is called Helicon Focus. Now, there are other ways of combining these images. You can do it in Photoshop, which is not nearly as intuitive, but it can be done. Also, I've read that the software that Canon distributes with their cameras, called Digital Photo Professional, will also do stacking. And I would assume that the Nikon software does, but it's not free. I believe you have to pay $100 or $200 to for that software. But if you have Canon, that software is free. I don't know how easy it is to use, but this Helicon Focus is extremely easy to use. On the right side, you can see that I have all of my pictures in there. And if I want to, I can take and I can disable any pictures that I think aren't good. Usually if there's some where something moved, I'll take that picture out. This picture, there was almost nothing moving except for the throat of the frog. And I don't have much problem with that at all. So I can pick any one of these algorithms to do the stacking. Usually that makes the most difference when you've got a challenging picture, like parts of it were moving. And then I can just tell it to render it. Now you'd think 20 images would take a while to do, but it really doesn't take that long. Now, I am confused because it doesn't look like what I expected. Oh, I actually have a rogue picture in here I should have taken out. So I'll just get rid of this and redo it. By rendering it again. Oops. And somehow it turned on again. Make sure that one's off. And render. It wants to keep adding that extra picture in there. At this point, I think I should go back and re-export the stack. Oh, okay, I see what's going on. I accidentally had everything selected. On my stack, if I hold down the shift key and select on the number, it'll expand out that stack and have all of those pictures highlighted. That's what I should have done. So let's export it again. Export to Helicon Focus. And you can see that I have it set up so that it'll give me a DNG, which is a raw file. Now I'll step through a couple of these pictures just to make sure that this is more what I'm looking for. Okay. So there they are, and we'll try rendering this again. There. So over here is a picture that was one of the ones that went into making this, but this is the combined image. And let's take that now back into Lightroom and try working with it. And it says I'll see it when I exit the program. So there it exported it, and this should be the image here, which I'm going to highlight and move my most highlighted selection over it and say group into stack. Now I've got all of those other images that contributed to this underneath this stack, and on the top is the picture that I want to deal with. And here, all the way out to here and up to here, this is all in focus. I guess this leaf did not get in focus. So from here, what I'd like to do is I'm going to zoom in on the frog, and I'll go to develop and do that. And there he is. He's a little bit not quite as sharp as I want it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out to another piece of software that I have been using pretty regularly now called Topaz AI. So under plugin extras, process with Topaz Photo AI. It takes a little bit of time to fire up.
So Roger, why do you think that's not in, why wasn't it in focus after the stacking?
I think because I'm cropping it too much.
Ah, okay.
If I could have gotten in closer, I wouldn't have had that issue. Okay, it's almost done exporting. Now, I'm just gonna let Photo AI do its thing on here, and in the lower left-hand corner, it's working away.
Roger, I think what happened was the first time you went into Helicon Focus, you brought in the top image of all those different stacks. That's what you were trying to do, right?
I was
You had all these stacks. You had stacked them up together in Lightroom. And
yeah,
I think you were exporting.
I just brought in one stack.
Well, that's why it didn't really sharpen, because that one stack had all these images that were close together by numbers. I could see that, like they were just incrementally in that one stack.
Well, they were one set of a shot that I took of all of those different focusing distances, 20 different shots at different focusing distances. And so I had done that procedure about 9 times, and that's why I ended up with 9 stacks of 20 images. They were each one of my attempts to get a good stack.
Roger, what software did you use when you did the rendering?
That was Helicon Focus.
Okay.
And yeah, it works pretty fast, and it really, there isn't that much of a penalty for taking too many shots. You know that you don't want to end up with too few shots.
And the second question, with all of those images, when you get the final image, do you delete all those stacks?
I have not been. I keep my best image at the top of the stack. And if I ever want to recreate it, an image or start from scratch, I've always got those images to work from, but since they're in a stack, they're really not in a way confusing everything. So I don't.
But you have to then have a lot of storage capability since you're shooting with RAW.
Yes.
Okay.
Use a lot of storage. So here's my final image, which I think turned out pretty good. Pretty much everything's in focus. Everything's pretty sharp.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to say that if you don't have a new mirrorless camera that can do all of these steps, you would do about the same procedure, but when you go to shoot the image, you can take and put the camera focus in manual, start at your minimum focus distance, take a shot, tweak the focus, take the shot, tweak the focus, take the shot, tweak the focus. You want to have a good steady tripod that you don't bump anything as you're taking all the shots. But before I got this new camera, that's how I was doing it. And it was a bit more work, but it worked fine. Now, Jeff Gallardi, he has a special focusing rail that will move the camera all those increments and take the shots. A little bit more money, he gets some fantastic results though.
Actually, what I've been doing lately, I have an old Canon, and if you put Magic Lantern on, it lets you preview, so you can figure out how many steps you need to take. And then it runs automatically just like one of the new mirrorless cameras. In fact, I just use the back LCD instead of the viewfinder. So it's like a mirror, it's functioning as a mirrorless camera. And the Magic Lantern lets you, it automates the process much like a new mirrorless camera. And so that's what I pretty much switched to lately.
Yeah. I think that there's a little bit of an advantage into, now that's not changing the focus on the camera though, that's moving the camera, isn't it?
No, that's changing the focus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think that when you have the focusing rail moving the camera, that's going to be slightly different than actually using the focusing optics in the lens to change all of the time. And it may depend on how good your lens is as to what your results are going to be.
Yeah, and another thing you run into is that as you're advancing your camera and getting closer to the subject, if you've got quite a bit of depth of field, you're changing perspective while you're going forward as well.
Right.
So that can cause artifacts and issues.
So is there any other questions? Anything I could, or other things about what I've gone through that you want clarified or? Anything else shown? Then I would conclude and I would let Jeff Klug take over with his presentation.
Roger, I do have one question.
Sure.
Why F8 instead of, say, a more open F2.8 and then take more steps? Or why something like F11 or F16 and less steps?
Well, you're kind of looking for the sweet spot of the lens, where usually around F8 to F11, you get your sharpest images off of a lens. Although the fact that you're taking an awful lot of steps does help compensate for that some.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, boy, you left me with a lot of time, Roger. Okay, let me get set up here. Let's see. I only have 2 screens tonight, so I have to rearrange a few things. All right. Let's see if we can make this work and show you a couple of new things I found. I'm a Kelby 1 subscriber, or whatever he now calls it these days, and he had a very interesting painting program that works with Photoshop. So I tried it out, and since Topaz Studio sort of went away, at least I can't get it to work on any of my computers anymore. I started looking for a new program, and it works pretty decent, but it only works in Photoshop. So I get the image the best way that I like it, and then I open up a copy in Photoshop, and of course it opens on the wrong screen. So here's the image, and it's basically a filter called AKVIS. I have no idea how you pronounce that, but it's an oil paint filter. And, okay, come on. Gotta let me. Now, I'm still learning it myself, so we'll see how I do with explaining it. It's not a terribly expensive program. It's around $50, $100 if you get their pro version. But it works pretty well, and it has a number of different ways to work it. The express way, you just can move the sliders. I like the preset way, and it gives you a bunch of different renderings, and it has landscape, broad, small brush, and I picked out ones that I happen to like: textured oil, spicy, vivid art. And if you click on it, now I haven't figured out why it only does a small square of it, and you can move this square around and you can see what it ends up doing. The simplest thing to me, and I wish I could figure out a way to get it to do it right off the bat, is if you hit after, it actually does a processing of the image, and you can then see what the image is going to look like after it's been processed. So you can try the different settings, and I just go through them and I have it process the whole thing out, because I really want to see the whole image. And you sort of get to see how it's making the oil paint up. Now, I'm using this in a number of different ways. I grabbed this bird shot just because this is one of my favorite bird shots, and I thought it'd be fun to see what it ends up doing. I sort of like it where you get more detail. So like the small brush, and you can go through and see which ones you like. And it gives a really nice piece of artwork is really what you're creating with it. So that's one of its uses, is that. This one's probably going to be my favorite because this is usually the small brush. You get most of the detail in, but when you zoom in, you can actually see the oil strokes to the bird. And it just gives a nice look. I'm planning to use it if I do a canvas print and I want it to be more of an artsy looking picture. Now, once you get the basic done, you can go in and adjust a lot of the settings in here. You can get more detail or less detail. And again, they show the small square. I think it's because it takes so much time to render. But you can really control this pretty well. And the square is a pretty accurate, and you can do filling, which if there's blank spots, you can change the lighting, you can change the way the strokes work. But you can also start to create more abstract stuff by changing the color of the strokes, the saturation, contrast, even going so much as changing the hue. So that's one of the uses that I end up doing it for, is just to create artwork. The main use is really what I wanted it for, is to create backgrounds. And let me get it so that it actually finishes here. And I think that's, yeah. So, and I'm just going to back up and we're going to start over here. And really what I end up wanting to do is create different types of backgrounds from different images. And even this image will work. I'll do strange things to it. And what I'll probably end up going and doing is I usually do a blur, and usually either motion blur, radial blur. Motion generally can be pretty good for creating interesting looks. And I want it to be up and down, so we'll go to 90. Some days it's just simpler to type 90 in and really get it blurred up. So here it gives me a nice light area and dark areas along the outer edge. So that's really what I start to look at. And I'll hit OK on that. And then I will go into another blur and just do a Gaussian blur. I wish all the panels wouldn't end up on my second screen. And soften it. So now I've got something that I probably could use as a decent background, with having the light area in the center that I could put my subject in, and have the dark on the outside edges. So now again, I'll take it into that art paint, just to give it more of a textured look. And let's move this down here so we can see. And I can go into the, I first usually start, because now you can see that with the painting, it creates a whole bunch of texture to the image. And you can look at these and try to decide which one might give you an interesting looking background. Now, these are just my favorites. They actually have quite a few more. And actually, I think, now that one looks like it's going to be what I'd like. Let's take a look at the full size. Yeah, and that doesn't look too shabby. Now, an interesting thing that I did read about is, as you saw how it was processing through, they had a stop button. So if you're looking at it and you see that, oh, that's looking good right where it's at, you can hit stop and it will stop the processing at that point. But this then gives me a nice interesting background. I can save it out. And then I can do any more working that I want. Now, if I wanted to soften it up or blur it a little bit more, I could do that. I think I'm going to just leave this one just the way it is. And we save it. And then I can take it into the develop module and do any more fixing that I want. If I wanted to soften it a little bit, I could, drop the clarity down. If I wanted to get some texture showing, but still soften it a little bit. And probably, if I wanted to, I could vignette it a little bit more. And this I could use now for a portrait or anything like that. And I'll save it into one of my background folders so that I have it for a background. So that's sort of how I use it. Anybody have any questions on that? I guess not. I don't see anybody. So
Jeff, this would be suitable to use for Wacko because you've created your own background then, correct?
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
that's really why this whole thing got started. It's for me to create my own backgrounds so that I can do what I want in Wacko in the first couple, the color open or mono open.
Okay.
I'll show you some other examples of what I've done with it. Here's a finished one with a couple of motorcyclists. This is what it looked like as the original, and this is the painting, which it's just an artsy type of look. This is where I'm using it the most. Here's the original, and here is with the painting and fooling around with the background. Here's another racing one, and here's after I've run it through the painting program. This one here is just one that I did that would make a nice piece of artwork. sort of hides a lot of defects sometimes in an image. Here's one where I just did a motion blur on it and then did a bunch of paint to it. I believe this is the original, so you can see. So I'm trying to do some artsy stuff. Here's another one. And then here's one of the last ones that I fooled with. So it's an interesting program. It works pretty well. And you're talking $50 to $100 for the pro version. And you actually buy it. I don't believe it's a subscription. So boy, only 8 o'clock, huh? I didn't have much prepared.
I
Would
think
you
it's
like
kind of,
to?
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I think it's kind of cool because you can put a picture, you know, with that painting in the background, you could put a picture in front of it and you'd have a pretty cool background.
Yep.
Couldn't you
Yeah.
actually put the picture of the bird in front of that background?
Yeah, you could. I'm just trying to see. No, I guess I didn't shoot any.
That's
I didn't.
essentially what you're doing with those race car pictures, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna. I'll show you how I do the race car stuff. Let's see if I can find it here. Because it's a nice way to blur the background a little bit more. And I go back and forth on some of these. Let's see. Yeah, that one's sharp. Okay. So, and this will show you a lot of different things that you can do in Photoshop. Probably shouldn't give away how I do all this stuff, but what the heck. Photoshop has really gotten very good at selecting your subject. And you have a object selection tool and quick select, and you could see that it will actually pick out stuff if you hover over it, as long as you're in that object selection tool. And you could see that it does a pretty good job of grabbing that race car. The other way that you can do it is just click select subject, and you could see that it selected the subject. And then I usually go to select and mask so that I can double check it, and you get this dialog box. And most of the time I hardly have to do anything, and the only thing that I do end up doing is output it to a separate layer using a layer mask in case I need to fix it up more. And I hit OK. So now it's removed the race car from the image, and I'm going to turn it back on just to make sure that it got everything about right. And I see a little bit in here where it didn't, so that's where you end up going into the mask and picking a brush, painting with black, and I'm not gotta make that brush a little harder edge. Some days it usually does a little better job, but I rushed it a little bit, so we'll just clean it up real quick. And if you screw up, that's the nice part with doing a mask. That's why I do a mask instead of just a selection, because if I screw it up, I can just fix it right here by painting in with white. And it's probably about good enough because it doesn't have to be perfect. Although I do tend to like to get it pretty close. And you can sort of scoot through the image just to make sure you got everything okay. And it did miss up some here, so let's just, because there's another nice part of once you get the car. Didn't like that. You can actually move the car around on the track. Well, let's see, that's probably good enough. I don't want to spend too much time on it. And then let's bring the background back. But now you can actually, with that highlighted, I can actually move the car anywhere I want on the track. So if this isn't quite the way I want it, I can change it. Let's put it back. Now, the other thing that I do, and if you hold the Option or Alt key, you can recreate that selection. And I go to the background, and what I want to do is fill that selection in. And you go Edit, Content Aware Fill. And anything that's green is what it's going to use to fill in that selection. So I want to make sure I get all this out. And actually, I want the track and the grass. And you could see here how well it did. It's not a perfect thing. Now I can have it try to do it a couple times. And I can just hit OK. So now if I turn this off, you can see what it did. Deselect. Select some of the dandelions, my favorite plant. And just clean up a little bit. Hit the track. So now I can actually put that car anywhere I want to. Oop. I'm not on the right layer to move my car. But I do want to move them farther up here. Then, because I selected the car, if you hold the Option or Alt key, you can again create the selection. And let's see, I'm going to back up here a little bit and do that Option or Alt selection again. Create a new blank layer. And in that layer, I'm going to fill that selection. Yeah, come on over here, dialog box, so everybody can see. Going to fill it with black. Deselect. Go down to Transform. Flip vertical. Move it down underneath the car. And I actually need to move this layer between the background layer and that. So now I'm creating a shadow of the car. Do a Control T to get to the transform. Hold the Shift key down and flatten it. And then I hold the Option key down and I can actually skew it a little bit so that the sun's coming from the front side. And hit OK. Then I just take the shadow and make it lighter, usually around 50%. And then while I also got that shadow layer going, I'm going to go to the blur and I'm going to soften the blur. Go to Gaussian blur. That's a little too soft. That's too much. It's always tricky finding that right spot. That doesn't look too bad. Now I'll take and group these two layers together and do Alt Option G to form a group. So now I can actually move the car and the shadow stays with it, and zoom, it can zoom right across the field. Now I'm going to take that background and do filter, blur, and motion blur. Whoa, wrong way though. The car going that way would be a real crash. Just make it 0. And you can decide then how much of a blur you want to, motion blur that you want. And I fool around with it quite a bit. Now you could just stay right with it this way, and this doesn't look too shabby. But what I can do is I'll make a duplicate copy and filter AKVIS maybe. And then just find one of the presets that I happen to like. Probably, I think I'll go under my favorites just to speed it up. And the small brush one is usually the one that I find that sort of creates a nice, it softens it a little bit more and just gives it a nice background to it. Then I can go to advance. And if I want, go to the abstract art and I can play with the color a little bit. You know me, I've got to turn up saturation. And if you want, you can even distort the image. This is, if you do that, you really want to end up doing the whole image so you can see. So you could make it so that it's on a little wavier track. So it, some of that stuff can be fun to play with. Now, one thing I forgot to mention, they do have decorations that you can add on here. You can add your own text if you want. You can put an image in. So if you've got something, say like a logo in that, you could put it in there. I was for a while playing around with just putting in text and then picking like a one of the, you know, scriptier ones. Except I forgot, where in the world did I put the text in? No, I think it's there. Yeah, and you can see it, it's right down here. I found I had to move it over a little bit, or you can move it to different corners. Let's put it back in that lower corner. And then you can actually, I think it's easier just to move it, and it helps if you make the size big enough to see. There we go. So then when you're happy with it, and besides text, they do have different canvas types that you can set up on and adjust where the light's coming from. And they even have different frames if you wanted to put it into a picture frame. And some of their frames actually aren't too shabby looking. Especially if you create a nice piece of artwork, you know, you might just want to be able to do that. Let's see if we've got any kind. And you can even adjust the size of the frame. I think I like this frame better. Yeah, that's a little much, isn't it? Oh, I like that one. Let's go with that. So once you're happy, oops, except for one thing, I want to get my signature up. And actually, let's see if I can. I have way too many fonts, people. Where is my Mr.? There we go. I don't think I want to outline it. We'll just leave it that way. Okay. So let's bring it back into Photoshop. And let's adjust the car a little bit more. Now, one of the other things that I have done sometimes with this image is, let's see if it will work. My photo AI for some reason doesn't seem to want to work. Yeah, it's not working on Photoshop right now. It works in my other one, but all I want to do is go to sharpen anyhow. And you could see how much it sharpened up this panning shot. It was fairly sharp. And this is with a 45 megapixel camera. You can see how much sharper the detail that Topaz does is just great. And it already picked out what kind of blur it was. It's helping me for the days that I'm not as near as steady as I used to be. I'm gonna go back to all my panning shots and see which ones I can salvage. So now we're back with that. Looks like we're about where I want to be, so let's save this and do the last finishing touches in Lightroom. Now this has made it a pretty good size file. Now the only trouble with me putting the frame on, of course, is that won't work in Wacko because that's not a frame I created. But generally you wouldn't put a frame on in a Wacko competition anyhow. But if I was going to sell this as a piece of artwork to that, say this racer or something, this would work out real nice and it would be pretty much ready to go. I sometimes will go in and use a gradient tool. Now I generally don't do it with a frame, so I'm going to have to do some extra work there. First off, got to bring this in below the frame. No, it's not going to work that way. Okay. And then I can darken that sky. Now I'll end up here brushing out. Let's see, if I just click on it, I can subtract. I'm going to just do it the quick way. Oh, not quite that big. But if I just go here, I could do this probably a number of different ways, but just to make it quick, I get rid of the frame part because I don't want the frame darkened. We'll fix that. I'm doing this with my mouse because my tablet got unplugged. And if you hold the Option key, you can add back in. So that darkened that background down a little bit. And I'd probably drop the highlights just so the car shows up a little more, because this strip in the highlights bothers me a little bit, so does this one a little. If I really wanted to, I probably could have gone back into Photoshop and done something with that. Sometimes I would darken this lower grass part, but I don't think it really needs to do it too much. And that would actually be a finished image. And then whenever I get a finished one, I will label it a 5, which then that will add it to my collection. So if I show you the two, there's before and there's after I did all the fooling around. Now that really didn't take all that long. I think that was about 20 minutes. So some of it's a little sloppy, but it's a nice way to be able to do a pan when considering my panning shots aren't turning out the greatest lately. Now, one of the nice things is it was a good enough shot that the wheels still are spinning. My next step is going to be, you can in Photoshop actually select just the wheel and spin it. So if I don't have the wheel spinning, I can actually spin the wheels as well. But I like the shadow. It sort of makes the car stand out a little bit more. The shadow is actually behind the car because the sun was behind my back when I shot this, but this ends up working out pretty decent, and it gets all the distraction in the background out. So,
Jeff,
any
got a question for you.
questions? Sure.
Hey, on the AI sharpening, do you use that now instead of doing it like how we used to do it in the past about going in there and sharpening it? You let AI do it now?
Yeah, that was Topaz Sharpen AI, and it does a pretty decent job with it. If you let me get back to just the one image, you go back to this original image, and it's not bad. Now, Photo AI does a pretty decent job, and I think I can actually do this in Photo AI now. And Photo AI does clean things up even a little bit more. What I believe is going to happen, because Photo AI, if you buy it by itself, is $200. Now I got it free because I have all three of the other programs. But you can see that Photo AI did a nice job of cleaning this up. Actually, probably a little better job than the sharpening did, although I left the sharpening on automatic. There is no noise because I shot this at a very low speed. I can't do faces, and I don't need to enhance the resolution. So just using the sharpening on autopilot does a pretty good job. And if I go to the split view, you can see the after and before.
Is there a thing that you can tell it what percentage AI to use? Like, hey, I want it a little bit sharper or a little less. Is there a possible on that?
Yeah, there's
Well, if you expand that sharpen dialog.
yeah, here it is. Yeah, you've got standard, you got lens blur. Here it probably could be on motion blur, and it's reprocessing.
And then you have strength down below.
Yeah.
It's really remarkable how sharp you can get that picture.
Yeah. Just watch out if you go too far. You can see how it, you just want to do enough to get it where it's sharp looking. A lot of people overdo it, and you don't want to go too far over, the least amount you can do, the better. But it does a pretty darn good job. It's salvaging a bunch of my racing pictures that I would have normally thrown out. I'm now able to keep. And this is actually, you can see it's 2 updates behind already on the Photo AI. But it does do a nice job if you've got noise and faces and you need to do other things. Photo AI just covers everything. Topaz Sharpen does a nice job if you're just looking to sharpen. But like I said, I believe Sharpen, denoise, and gigapixel are all going to go away soon, and all you're going to have is this Topaz Photo AI.
There's still rolling functionality that was in the other programs into this yet.
Yeah, and that's why, like right now, there's 2 updates available. Now they're adding basic masking brush to it, and more support for DNG, cropping, and I believe also all this stuff. There's a whole bunch of other things. They're still fixing a lot of problems with it, but the update size is 252 megabytes, and it's just an update. So I didn't want to do that now because I thought, oh, it's gonna kill my download speed. So I'll do that when I get a chance. But I've been impressed with Photo AI, and for certain things, sharpen and denoise all by themselves still have a lot of uses yet. Yeah, I might as well save this one.
When I've been using it, I've got it set so that when I come back to Lightroom, it's in a stack. More of my using of stacks to organize things.
Yeah.
Other place where the stacks come in handy is where I'm doing HDR photos. I'll get from my camera, I get 3 pictures plus a JPEG that combines it. And I put the JPEG on the top of the stack. And usually what the camera produces for combining those in the JPEG is good enough for my use, but I like keeping the raw files that produced it, that I can use Lightroom to create a raw file from those, combining those HDR images.
Yeah. No, I use stacks all the time myself. It's not so much on this panning stuff because it's different cars, but you can see right now, here's the main image, the raw file. Here's that one with the painting. I hate when I hit the map. Now everybody knows where I'm shooting the spots.
We know your secrets.
But here's the finished artsy one, and this is the sharpened one. Which, I mean, it does a nice job with just sharpening the car and not the blurred stuff that I want blurred. So, yeah.
When you photo stack, let's say you got 10 pictures and each picture is, let's say, 100 meg, just going crazy. Would that give you like a 1 terabyte combined? I mean, 1 gig?
Yeah.
Picture?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then it adds up all of that. Okay, I wasn't sure.
Oh, yeah.
They're all still individual pictures. You can break them out of the stack back to individual pictures too, if you want.
But even if you look at this art one that I just did, it's now 572 megabytes for one file with all those layers that I had.
Yeah, you can run out of space, memory space, really quick with doing this.
Yeah, that's why I tell everybody, you do not want to keep this on your main hard drive on your computer. You want to keep it on a separate hard drive, connected. And you want to make sure that you, call your bad images out. I've got one customer that we just doubled the size of his storage from 20 terabytes to 40 terabytes. And that was 6 months ago. And he's down to 6 terabytes left. And I keep telling him, you got to start culling your images or you're going to have to spend another couple grand on another RAID setup. And because all these files are starting to get so huge, it doesn't take much. I mean, when I shoot at this Road America one, I'd shot around 3,000 images, but I have it down to 430. Because panning, I get a lot of bad shots, so my panning sometimes is all over the place. But
I got a
even
question
then,
for you. With
Sure.
all this memory size, would the best thing be that like Blazer, I think it is, that online service where it's basically unlimited storage space? Would that be probably a way to go?
Well, it's a way to back up, but it's
back
such
up.
slow upload speed that you can't work with the image direct. You still need to just buy a RAID box of some sort if you've got a lot of images and you want to do a lot of good backup. I actually have something like 12 hard drives going right now, and 6 of them are the main hard drive and 6 are the backup, plus offsite backup and backblaze. So
Your hard drives, is it most of that, is that in like a sleep mode until you back stuff up and stuff like that?
no, it's I use RAID. Oh God, I get the RAIDs all mixed up. I just do a mirrored RAID. So when it goes to one drive, it goes to the other drive as well.
So you get mirror
And
images and mirror
yeah,
copies.
it's a
Yep.
mirrored image. That way, if one of the drives goes bad, and then I actually have that copied to another hard drive, so that I have 2 sets and that one is copied using a different program, so that there's a time delay before it copies it in case the main RAID drive gets corrupted somehow. It doesn't corrupt my second backup. So I'm a little more paranoid than most, but
So the sad thing is you spend so much time and money, a lot of time is invested in this. And this is just one picture. You have, let's say, 100,000 pictures in that, boy, you're losing, like a lifetime's worth of work.
yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I just watched a video though on a guy who does close-up macro photography. I mean, he sells his humongous prints, everything. He spends 10 hours cleaning up little imperfections in a watch or something that he's taking
Wow.
the close-up. He focus stacks and then he cleans up and he replaces things and he adjusts the light and something. Yeah, he'll spend forever on the one image, but he ends up with this immaculate, amazing image at the end, which then he sells and makes back all his time that he spent on it.
Yep.
Just
I no
depends what
longer
you want.
have
Do you
that
want to
patience.
do you want a ton of photos, or do you want like one like amazing photo?
Yeah, right now I just bought my first hard drive for upgrading my backups from 4 terabyte drives to 8 terabytes.
I'm running 12 and 16 terabyte drives.
The hard thing is with these higher megapixel cameras and stuff like that. Oh boy, it's fills up a lot of space super quick, and smaller there's fewer pictures you can take, but it takes more memory size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess you got to be really selective on what you take pictures of now.
Well, no, you need to be selective on what you keep after you download it from your card to the computer. And you don't need to keep every single image. And that's part of learning how to call them out and get rid of the stuff that's no good. The first thing I do is I go through it one time just to get rid of anything that's out of focus, that's not going to be sharp enough. When I do my racing stuff, it gets to be even a little longer because I'll go through and get rid of what I consider the junk, but then I go through it again, and all those panning pictures, I got to look at them at 100%, and I go through all those, and if any of them are a little soft, I usually delete those, and then I keep what I consider the best ones of that. So I could start with 2,000 or 3,000 images, and when I get done, I'll be down to 400 or 500. And
I'm
then
kind of the same way with what you've done, because I've been doing local bands now, and I've been just taking tons of pictures. And then I do like a quick review. It's like, okay, this is blurry. It's like delete, delete, delete. And then the ones that look okay, then like what you said, I'll zoom in at 100%. It's like, okay, that's still a little soft. And that's like, okay, that might be kicked to the curb and that. But yeah, I've deleted like 400 gig already. I was taking so many pictures in that.
Yeah. No, it's you got to learn to get rid of that stuff. It just isn't worth the price of the hard drives. So and I mean, I have a lot of hard drives, but you still tend to run out of space after a while. So you got to delete. Ken's good at that. He's deleted a lot of stuff. He used to do that every winter, I think. So I meant to do it this winter, go through all my racing pictures and start deleting. I have a system where I label anything that's good a 3-star, and 4 stars are ones I'm going to work on. 5 stars are my finished images. That way I can keep smart collections going on my 5-star to know which ones are finished. And then my 4 stars are the ones I generally work on. 3 stars, after a while, I'll go through them again and I'll start deleting. So at least it gives me an area that I can look at for figuring out what to delete. So did I blather on long enough? It's 8:50. I guess I did all right. For
Well, I
not
think
knowing what I was going to talk about until this afternoon.
Well, I think there was a lot of great information in that.
Yeah. Well, I hope everybody found it entertaining on my part. I can't wait to try focus stacking. Nikon's system works pretty similar to Canon's, but I have to get Helicon focus yet. I haven't had a chance to go out and shoot with it yet.
I might do that focus stacking when I go to Oshkosh for air adventure. I like to try an aircraft, but boy, I might have a ton of pictures just on one aircraft.
Sure.
Yeah. And the hard part is keeping people away while you shoot that stack of pictures. But
Well, I found out too that if the people are in the image, but they're not where you were focusing, they'll drop out.
yeah. And nowadays you can do that content aware and get rid of them too.
Yeah. Well, in the Helicon focus, there is a touch-up section where you can say, in this area, I want to take and use information from this particular frame.
Oh, okay.
And so you can even do things like, well, I really want the background out of focus here. You can go in and blend in that area from a different frame that had that out of focus.
Yeah, I want to try it. I just haven't found the time.
Yeah. And like I say, you can do it in Photoshop too. It's just not nearly as convenient. That
No, and
Helicon
it's
focus is just kind of a one-click do it.
yeah. Photoshop, that's one thing I would never recommend Photoshop for doing it. Only if you were shooting depth for maybe 7 or 8 frames and you wanted to control it that way for a landscape shot, it might work better.
Yeah.
But for
It is
any of the
supposed to have
large
some-
amounts,
It is supposed to have some function in there specifically for that, but it's not as easy to set up, I think.
no.
I did do it once and I said, nah, that's not fun.
Yeah. No, they keep improving it. I mean, its capability of picking out subjects in Photoshop is just getting to be amazing. So
I wouldn't be surprised if they eventually add it to Lightroom. They have for the HDR and the
yeah,
panoramics.
yeah. And they've got it in the masking, so they're getting closer.
Mhm.
So,
Well, I really
and we're
like
going to
how
see a bunch of AI stuff soon too. So,
I like how easy you can remove stuff. You know, light poles, telephone poles. It does a very decent job on that too.
yep.
That keeps getting easier.
Yeah, it's taking away all that training that I had to go through 15 years ago when Lightroom when you had to do everything the hard way. It's made it so much simpler.
But it makes it more difficult to submit photos for organizations like WACO. I mean,
Yeah.
because you really can't be, you really can't be exploring a lot of different things if you're confined to using, although if you got yourself, Clint, some crime scene tape and then just put it around where you want to shoot the airplanes, then maybe people would avoid it. Tell them there'll be a dead body if anybody walks in there.
Yeah.
Well, what helps is I do photography after everyone leaves and that, because then I get my military clearance and that, and then, you know, so, but then it's nighttime, then it's like light painting, but it is a lot of fun though. It's like, this is great. Nobody's around to mess up my photo.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of stuff coming, especially in Photoshop and what Adobe's working on next. There's a lot of hints of a lot of AI stuff coming up from them.
Well, if you just think about it, think about all the features and these softwares have. Think about all the toys and accessories you can get for the camera equipments and that now too.
Yep.
AI is making it difficult for a lot of things, whether it's writing stories, whether it's deep fakes, I mean, it used to be you can believe what you see and the answer is not anymore, you know.
No.
It's just really a perception of what is out there because you're not sure. I just remember, is it real or is it Memorex? You know, that old commercial from how many years ago?
I gotta say that I've been using Chat GPT for a lot of stuff that I have to write.
Okay.
I had it do for the bios for both of the speakers at the March seminar. They gave me this long half-page, three-quarter page of their bio, and I said, I'm not sitting here and reading that for 5 minutes. I took the whole bio, put it into Chat GPT, and told it to condense it down to 6 sentences. And 15 seconds later, it had it condensed down better than I could ever write it. And then I just had to run it through a grammar program to fix a little bit of grammar and change a couple words here and there. And instead of me spending an hour and a half on it, I had it done in 15 minutes.
Wow.
And
yeah,
I mean, it's really been a lifesaver for a lot of stuff where I need to get stuff condensed down and I can actually give it what I need condensed.
and apparently for a lot of high
job.
school and college students as well, because they're making papers with Chat. Well,
yeah, the only
they'll
problem is
find a way.
it's only about 60% right for doing research.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Where it works for me is I'm actually giving it the info that it needs to work from. And so it's just condensing it down. So there it's like 90% correct. So you do have to watch it. But I tell you, for a lot of stuff, it's really working out nice.
It may show up in my newsletters then, huh? Maybe I'll give that a look.
Yeah, you never know. It's I keep it. One of my browser tabs has Chat GPT open, and if I need it for something, I just flip to it and put in the info. And if nothing else, it gives me a lot of ideas on what to search for and write up. And I know when I'm researching a lot of things whether it's right or not. So, but it does write well, and it writes in such a confident tone that you would swear it's correct. So.
But I suppose if you start seeing the newsletter as a novel every month.
I wonder what she's been working with. Although usually I have to, whenever I write anything, I write usually twice as much as I need, so I can cull it. And
Yeah.
this might be something that I can just put all my words in and say, hey, fix it. It'll
Cut-
give me a little bit more of an easier start, because I do
Yeah.
some design columns for National Community Public Paper and Michigan. So those are always time intensive a little bit. So
Yeah.
What's nice
me,
is if you write-
the newsletter, mostly photos. I can fill with a lot of photos. So keep them coming.
What's nice is like what Jeff did is, you gave it what to go off of, and then it condensed it down to that. So I really like that. You're not manipulating. I mean, it's condensing. So I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I never thought of that.
One of the AI things I'm kind of interested in is there's some type of Google plugin you can use in Lightroom that will help you keyword photos. Has anybody played with that at all?
No, that sounds like a good idea. I wonder if you could
Supposedly it'll
submit a
even do
photo to
things-
ChatGPT and ask it to give you keywords.
Sure. Supposedly it'll even do things like if you have the GPS data in it and you took pictures of a mountain, it'll tell you which mountain that was,
Oh,
things like that.
yeah.
So I
No,
think that would be kind of cool, is telling, AI, it's like, instead of having to click it, like, hey, I want to remove the telephone poles. I want to move the people. I just want the cars or the airplanes. We might get to that point, where you just got to voice activate it instead of click on anything.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like my room with all the empty tables. Okay, fill the tables up with people and that. Hey, it's perfectly great. This is a wonderful, fantastic restaurant.
Yep. Well, that's going to be the next step that we'll be talking about. Probably talk about that in digital form one of these days, is Mid-Journey and creating photos from nothing just by using keywords. And it's putting a lot of stock photographers and stuff for keynote presentations out of work, because it can create stuff. You just tell it exactly what you're looking for. Instead of going to a stock site, you tell it what you want. And I don't say plain white background, so you can drop the background out and boom, you have something for a keynote presentation. But yeah, times are changing. But we all do this for having fun. It's the fun of going out and shooting the pictures. And for me, I enjoy processing as much as I enjoy shooting. So
part
I
of
don't
going
mind
out-
sitting an hour on a picture. So
Part of the say the event, when you go out, it's the journey. It's like, oh, I remember it was snowing horrible, and that I hiked 3 miles, and that so it's kind of fun part of the journey too.
Yep. Yep. So
Part of why I do so much travel photography.
yeah,
It's fun.
I
Well,
wish I could get away.
I think it's kind of fun because it's actually somewhat healthy, because you're outside getting exercise. You're out walking a lot, unless you stand around and take pictures, let's say for birds or whatever, unless you're hiking to the birds and that. So.
Yep. No, but you got to keep it fun.
Yeah.
No, you do.
Well, Roger, is that it?
I think we covered
It's
everything
9:03.
on my agenda. So
Well, I thought it was a great camera call tonight. Great meeting.
Yeah.
A lot of
well,
great information.
I think
Well,
we
thank
did
you.
fairly well for losing our main speaker.
Yeah. And we'll try to get him in sometime in the future here. He said he'll make sure that he'll come and do it one of these days. So
Well,
we'll work on getting
unfortunately, in
him.
his area, the weather has been so active, it might be difficult to get him.
Yeah, well, that's why we have to find the right times of the year to get them. So,
Yeah.
but no, we'll hopefully get them back. So,
Okay, well, we'll conclude the meeting.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank
Have
you.
a good night.
Very informative. Thank you.
great.